Okay, guys, good morning. Bruchim Habayim. Be'ezrat Hashem. Today we're going to be learning the fourth Mishnah of Masechet Bava Metzi'a, first chapter. Just wanted to remind everybody that's with us, and also those that listen to our shiur every day, that if they want to sponsor a shiur, you can always sponsor a shiur for 101. And also, if anybody's interested in sponsoring the whole Masechet, then that's also available. That should be, it's a beautiful 10 chapters of this Masechet, and we're going to offer that to whoever would like that for 1,000. So, Bezat Hashem, if somebody wants to do that, Tizku Mitzvot. Okay, says the Mishnah. Metzi'a v'nafal aleha. So, if somebody sees a lost object, now over here, this is a very important point that the Mishnah is bringing out. The point of this Mishnah is the following. When a lost object is in a public domain, so the halacha says that in order to acquire that lost object, to simply throw yourself on top of it is not enough. To put your body on it to prevent people from taking it, that's not enough. In order to make it yours, you have to grab it, you have to hold on to it, acquire it, and you have to lift it up. You have to do a maaseh kinyan on it. To simply throw yourself on top of it when it's in a public domain, in other words, the middle of the street, let's say, where people walk and come back and forth in a public area, the halacha says that a person who throws himself on top of it, it's not going to become his. So therefore, this guy, he saw the lost object. And again, remember, whenever we talk about lost objects, we're going to learn Bezat Hashem in the second chapter that there are some lost objects that you can keep for yourself because they don't have any kind of identifiable features on it, that you should know that that if a person comes and claims that it belongs to him, there's no way for you to be able to know that it really is his, in which case the guy who lost it, who really does own it, gave up hope because he knows that there's no way that he can ever get it back, and therefore you can keep it. But there are some objects that's not the case. So we're going to learn, God willing, in the second chapter, which objects you're allowed to keep and which objects you have to announce to look for the owner of the object. But we're assuming now we're talking about something that you're allowed to keep. So this guy sees that kind of an object in the middle of the street in the public domain, and he jumps on it, literally. He goes and he throws his body on top of that object. Nafal aleh, he falls onto it. Uba acher vehechzik ba. Now some other guy, a wise guy, sees what happened, and he goes, sticks his hand under the belly of this person, and grabs the object and lifts it up and takes it. Says the Mishnah, Zeh shehechzik ba zachaba. The guy who actually held it up and acquired it for himself, he's the one who's now the owner of this object. Because simply throwing your body on top of an object in a public domain will not make it yours. You have to lift it up and you have to acquire it for yourself. That's an important understanding in the laws of kinyanim. Kinyanim means how to make something yours, how to acquire ownership of something. Now says the Mishnah, says Rabbi Ovadia Bar Tanura, but that's only when it's in a public domain. That's only when it's in an area that's in the middle of the street where people are coming and going and walking all the time. That's where it doesn't work. But there are some areas that are semi-public, meaning it's a side street off to the side. That's called a simita, or it's a street that sometimes people kind of go off to the side of the road over there. And they hang out there from time to time, but it's not usually used like that. That's called tzidei reshut harabim. It's the side of the public domain. Semi-public. A semi-public place, in such a case, simply by standing within 4 amot of that lost object, you will acquire it for yourself without having to pick it up. The only time that you have to pick it up is when it's in an actual public domain. It's in the marketplace. It's in the mall. It's in certain places that are real public domains. But when it's in a semi-public domain like that side street where some people travel there, or it's a street off to the side, let's say a little kind of area that juts out of the public domain that some people will stand over there, but not really too many people go there, that kind of place, all you have to do to acquire the lost object, to make it yourself, belong to yourself, is to stand within 4 amot, which is around 6 feet. If it's within 6 feet away from you and you decide, I want to acquire it, then the halakha says that you acquired it when it's not in a full public domain. So let's say there's a lost, lost Rolex over there, and there's no identifiable features, and anybody could have a Rolex, for example, right? And it's in the middle of an area that he clearly dropped it. He didn't mean to leave it there. He gave up hope. Let's assume, for example, that could be something you're allowed to keep. And all you are doing is walking close to it. You're not actually lifting up. So then would you acquire it? It depends. Are you in a public domain? You didn't acquire it. Are you in a semi-public domain? Then just by being there within 6 feet, you acquired it. Okay. Now, says the Mishnah. Now here, we're back to good old competition, trying to get the lost object. Over here, we're talking about animals that are lost, or animals that don't have any owner. It's called hefker. This is a very important term. Hefker means something that's ownerless. And this guy wants to become the owner of this animal. So over here, the case is the following. He is standing in his backyard. His backyard does not have any fence surrounding it. And a deer kind of just came into his backyard, or some little baby chicks came into his backyard. And now he's there. Now he sees in the distance that there are people that are running after those baby chicks, or they're running after the deer. They want to grab the deer to keep it for themselves. It's beautiful. Now they're going to have beautiful dinner, right? They're going to shech the deer and use it, or maybe use the skin. Who knows? And he says, why should I let them do that? It's in my property right now. Let me use my property in order to acquire the deer for myself, or the baby chicks for myself. Says the Mishnah, if the deer was a lame deer, which means that it's not able to run, it's something that is like almost, it's limping, it's not running fast, it's very easy to catch the deer because it's going very slow, it's got some kind of problem with it. So then, by the mere fact that this guy says, let my property acquire the deer for me, at that moment, the deer becomes his deer. Why? Because since he's able to get it, he's right there, and the deer is in his property, right? So then his property is able to acquire it because it's secure within his property. It's there, it's not going anywhere. He can walk right over to it and grab it himself. So therefore, says the Mishnah, if it was a lame deer, a deer that doesn't really run, it's not able to get away, and he is right there, and the property, it's in his property, so he is able to acquire it just by saying, let my property acquire it for me. That's called a kinyan chatzer, that the fact that it's on his property is what enables it, and it enables him to acquire it, due to the fact that it's secure in its property, that he's able to go and grab it right now. He's right there and he's able to get it. So even though the people are 10 feet away trying to catch that deer for themselves, the minute he says, let my property acquire it, it's his on the spot. Same thing for the baby chicks. Baby chicks cannot fly yet. So therefore, when he says, let my property acquire it for me, then it's definitely going to belong to him. On the other hand, so let's see the Mishnah inside. So he sees people running after the lost object, or he sees them running after a broken deer, or baby chicks that can't fly. And he says, let my field acquire it for me. It works for him. It acquires it for him. Now, on the other hand, says the Mishnah, but if it's, let's say, a deer that is able to run and get away in 2 seconds, you try and grab it, it's going to run away from you, right? or it's the birds that can fly, and you try and grab the birds, they'll fly away. So then the fact that it's in your property doesn't mean that they're secure in your property. And then the guy goes, he said, you let my property acquire it for me. Lo amar klum. It's meaningless. It doesn't work. Why? Because it's not secure within his property. And therefore, if the other people get to it first, then they are the ones who acquire it. The fact that it's in his property doesn't mean that he is able to acquire it because it's not secure within his property. Now, the same scenario, however, if he had a fence, and let's say the deer cannot get out anymore because the fence is closed, and now the deer is stuck inside. So then if he says, let my property acquire it for me, then it works because it's secure within his property. So that's how he would be able to acquire the lost object, because the chatzer, the courtyard or the field, is able to acquire it for the person when it's secure within the property. But when it's not secure, so then it doesn't work. So if he has a fence around it, then it doesn't matter what kind of deer it is. If it's fast, if it's slow, if it's limping, doesn't matter. But if there's no fence, that's when we say that it makes a difference what kind of deer we're talking about. If it's able to run away, then his property doesn't acquire it. If it's not able to run away, then his property could acquire it. That is today's Mishnah, gentlemen. Chazakim and Ruchim. If we have any questions, bechavod. We're good.
Thank you very much, Rabbi.
Okay, gentlemen.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Only good news.
Shabbat shalom.
We'll see you. Kol tov.